Well, everybody, welcome into the Spring Football Report. I am your host, Phillip Jordan from National College Football and 96.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama, where I'm the in-studio host and producer of Dothan Wolves Football. And this is your weekly look at all things spring football, talking the XFL and the USFL here on the show. And I don't apologize, I've kind of been slacking here on this show the last few weeks. Really been on hiatus, all podcasting. I hadn't really delivered one to you guys since the XFL Championship week, so I apologize. But we are back to close out the USFL season each and every week, and I plan on keeping the show going once we get past the USFL as well. Got a fun show planned for you guys today. I am going to be joined by Zach Keilman. He is the host of the USFL podcast and Inside the Walls podcast, which that one covers the National Arena League. We'll get into it with Zach in just a few moments. So I'm going to go over week 7 in the USFL. Got some XFL news to discuss later on in the show. We'll get into that as well. And my picks for USFL week 8. I'm really excited about this upcoming week because I am going to be at the Birmingham Stallions final home game of the season when they go up against the Philadelphia Stars, which is a rematch of the USFL championship game from last season. I actually took in some old football over the weekend too. I went to see the Columbus Lions, formerly of the National Arena League. Now they are playing in the AIFA. They defeated defending champion Mississippi Raiders 63-6. I told my friend that I went to the game with, I said, if this is the best this league has to offer, this league's in trouble. And that's what it looked like with these two teams playing, which the Mississippi Raiders did lose their quarterback. But I'll probably make it to another Columbus Lions game in a few weeks. But this weekend, I'm really looking forward to heading up to Birmingham. I'm in the Dothan, Alabama area, so it's about 3 to 4 hours away from Birmingham. But it should be a lot of fun. 2 o'clock game over on NBC. But we'll get into that as we progress into the show at the end when I deliver my picks for this upcoming week. And also, hey, I'm also putting this podcast on the Phillip Jordan Show feed as well. Hope you guys enjoy it. If you check out the Phillip Jordan Show, I hope you will enjoy this as well. But before we jump into it, though, obviously, let you guys know find me in the podcast. Find me on social media at PJordanSEC. Podcasts available, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all your favorite podcast platforms. Please follow, rate, and review your special Apple Podcast. You leave a review, I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can always email me at sportstalkphillipjordan@gmail.com. You can check out the show over on my YouTube channel, Phillip Jordan Media Network. So now let's jump into it. Let's kind of look back, and we're going to go a lot in detail with Zach on week 7 in the USFL. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about these games, but we're going to kick things off. It was the first game on Saturday. Birmingham defeated New Orleans 24-20. Birmingham 5-2. They have the best record in the league. New Orleans, this is their 3rd consecutive loss after starting 4-0. And I just remember with New Orleans, they start 4-0. McLeod, Bethel Thompson, West Hills, what they were doing through the ground, in the air. I said, wow, this team is 4-0. They're by far the best team in the USFL. They're on their way to a championship, and now they've lost 3 games in a row. Turnovers is a big issue. In this game, they struggled in the red zone scoring touchdowns. Really, if you look at the numbers in this game, statistically, outside the turnovers, outside the score, New Orleans outplayed Birmingham. They had more time possession, they had more yards, more rushing yards, more passing yards. But in the day, it matters who has more points in the game, and that was Birmingham. And Birmingham's defense was really good in the red zone, holding, like I said, New Orleans 1-4. They stood up. New Orleans had to kick field goals, and Birmingham was 3 of 4 getting touchdowns when they got in the red zone. So they were holding New Orleans out, and then they were capitalizing on their attempts when they got in. Birmingham got up to 24-9 lead. And check this out, talking about the red zone. In Birmingham's wins this season, in the 5 wins this season, teams have made 15 trips to the red zone, but they have only scored 3 touchdowns. So that's big. So Birmingham's defense, and a lot of it's due to injuries. I mean, they really had to shuffle both the offense and defense this season. But yes, they've given up some yards, they've given up some drives, but teams are not scoring touchdowns in the wins. Now, in the losses, I think they're like teams are 7 of 9 scoring touchdowns in the red zone. So when they're winning, they're holding you out. When they're losing, teams are having success doing that. Now, New Orleans just scored 11 points in the fourth quarter. McLeod F. Thompson got hot there, but there was some confusing stuff with was it a catch? Was it not? It wasn't ruled a catch. Teams didn't know where to go. It was just really, you need to go look it up on YouTube. It was really a weird deal, confusing situation. And then New Orleans basically had to throw a Hail Mary at the end to have a shot. Alex Magoo, solid game, 16-23, 176 yards through the air. He's not going to be the leading passer in the league, obviously, but what he means to Birmingham and what he can do and the stress he puts on defenses with his running ability, he's got to be the MVP of the league, in my opinion. He's a much better passer than he was last year before he lost the starting job to Smith there. But Magoo he put so much stress on your defense. They finding some things in the run game. Birmingham over had 100 yards. That's one thing that they've struggled with this season. I think they've not been as efficient, as successful this year running the ball as they were last year. Particularly this time last year, they were really riding with Bo Scarborough, but they were able to find some success running the ball in this one. Like I said, they forced 3 turnovers against New Orleans. So we'll see what does New Orleans do going forward. They're now 4-3. Like I said, we'll get to the picks later. And then Birmingham's on 5-2, but have a big matchup with Philadelphia this Saturday. So that's going to be a one to keep an eye on. That night, the team they do play this Saturday, Philadelphia, defeated Pittsburgh 37-31 to improve to 4-3. Philadelphia sits atop of the North at 4-3, the only team in that division with a winning record. And Pittsburgh falls to 2-5. You'll look at it, Pittsburgh was not good last year, and they have a losing record now, but they're very competitive. This is a very competitive team, but this is all about Philadelphia here. Philadelphia played the best I think they've played all season. Case Cook has had time. He's being protected better. Defensively, they played well. And you look at they gave up 31 points. One of those was off a kick return. They really played good, really well, and especially there in the second half. They didn't give up a lot of points in the second half. Case Cook is, like I said, he was 18 of 30, 235, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He does have 8 interceptions on the year. But as I'll talk with Zach later, a lot of that could be just from getting pressure. You speed up your thought process. You're going to try to get the ball out of your hands quicker, and then the mistakes can't happen. But he is being protected much better. This is 3 wins in a row for Philadelphia since their 41-16 loss to Houston. They did find a running game in this one with 114 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cook has added to that, but they did have 83 yards from Matthew Colburn on the ground. So they seem to be finding some things. The Stars seem to be finding their stride, and that's big because this is the time last year they found their stride too. So we look at those 2 teams, Birmingham and Philadelphia. We could be looking at 2 teams playing in the USFL championship game this upcoming season at the end. Memphis defeated Houston 23-20. This was really I think this was my most anticipated matchup of the weekend. Coming into game, Memphis was 3-3. They started 0-3. I remember that. Everybody's went, okay, Todd Haley. Is he the problem here? He's fussing at coaches. He did with Skip Holtz. He did after a game against Houston earlier where they lost. It was unraveling. Now they've won 3 games in a row. Cole Kelly is playing an efficient football quarterback. They're not wowing you with the passing game, but he's not losing the game. They're running the ball more, and defensively they're playing better. They're creating turnovers, which is a big part of it. Now Memphis has now won 4 straight games after the 0-3 start, and the loss for Houston snapped a 4-game winning streak because they started 0-2. And I had questions about Houston early on. Kenjay Bahar was turning the ball over a lot. That was a big issue for them. They shored that up. He's played well. They're efficient defensively. They lean on the running game when they need to with Mark Thompson. When Memphis tried to give this game away, they were up by 10 points. They were up 16-6, and then boom, here comes Houston. Mark Thompson had a 1-yard touchdown with 7:08 left in the game to get 16-13. And Cole Kelly had a fumble on a 3rd and 32, which led to Mark Thompson another touchdown, 20 yards, get it 20-16 in Houston's favor. 156 at the end. Cole Kelly finds Derek Dillon, 64-yard touchdown, big play, 144. They go at 23-20, and then Houston's unable to move the ball and get down the field and win the game. There was an interception there by Bahar. So now Memphis goes to 4-3. Now they're probably, would you say, where would you put them at now? I thought Memphis was a playoff caliber team coming into the year, but that was with Brady White at quarterback. But like I said, what Cole Kelly's doing, this is a very good team. And we all looked at them when they got blown out. Second game of the season against Birmingham. What was this team? When now we see this is a team that is playing better. They found themselves. We see this a lot. Look, I mean, Houston's a team. They were 0-2. Philadelphia, they've won 3 games in a row. They were 1-3 at one point. And I'm about to get into Michigan. They were 2-0, dropped 4 in a row. Now they won a big game against New Jersey, 25-22. Josh Love, I really liked what he did in the first game. I thought even the second game and on, there were some shaky moments. He played better last week, even though they wasn't a loss. But now this past week, he played really well, 16-29. He was a little shaky in the first possession, but 264, 3 touchdowns. Solid, not great. Reggie Corbin had 78 yards. Joe Walker, receiver, was big, 5 receptions, 121, and a 68 touchdown catch. I've not been a fan all year of the 2 quarterback system. They were New Jersey. Now it's with Kyle Lauletta and DeAndre Johnson. I think DeAndre Johnson should be the full-time starter. It feels like they've been trying to recapture some magic they had last season with Luis Perez. Went on to the XFL, won the championship for Arlington, and Johnson. But it just hasn't worked with the quarterbacks they brought in. I think you just need to ride with Johnson there. But he's out, head injury. Horrible looking situation there for him. Obviously they're not going to have him this week. We'll see going forward what's going to be the deal there with him. And so let's jump into it. I was doing this before my power rankings. What are my top 8? I'm going to rank them 8 to number 1. And number 8 got Pittsburgh. It's kind of hard, really, it was to pick who should be last place in this. I believe any team can beat anybody in this league, but I will go Pittsburgh at 8 at 2-5. New Jersey, I'll put them at 7 at 2-5. At number 5, Number 6, I've got Michigan at 3-4, Philadelphia at 4-3. You're seeing a pattern here. Top 4 teams are in the South. I got New Orleans at 4, just losing 3 straight. Houston lost a tough one, 23-3 there to Memphis. I got Memphis as second best the way they're playing. They've won 4 games in a row. They're 4-3. You can't take it away from them. And then Birmingham at number 1 at 5-2. All right, buddy. Now we're going to jump into my conversation I had with Zach Keilman. We had said we were going to do 20 minutes. We ended up doing 35 minutes on the conversation. Actually, we think we may have went long now. We went between 35 40 minutes. We talked about where his alt football fandom started, overall thoughts on season 2, and we'll get into these games. Then we'll talk some a little bit National Arena League and Antonio Brown with him as well. Hope you enjoy my conversation with Zach Keilman. Everybody join me on the show. They've been really looking forward to talking to this guy, Zach Keilman. You can check him out on the USFL podcast and Inside the Walls podcast, the official podcast of the National Arena League. I know they've had some interesting storylines over there this season over there. But Zach, I do appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, Phillip. And no, you're absolutely right. NAL, it's been a year, and it's not even halfway done. I can go into some stuff later on, obviously, but if any of your fan base follows the NAL, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But glad to be here, glad to be chatting with you, and let's dive into this thing, man. I'm stoked.
Yeah, like I said, I've been looking forward to having you on. And as I've kind of gotten more into podcasting and interviewing people that cover all these spring leagues. I mean, I was talking about the XFL when it was going on, now the USFL. Mm-hmm. Where does your alternate football fandom start? I know CFL fans hate that word, alt football. Listen, we're in the United States. Well, you are an alternate to us, so y'all just chill out for a little bit. But
to me, it's alt football. You can call it spring football if you want. I respect, first off, I fully respect what CFL people are talking about because they've been around the block. They have been around. This is a league that has origins dating back well over 100 years with the Argos and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I get it. But it is alternative football. It's not the main one that most people in the U.S. or in the globe watch, just for that reference in first part. My fandom didn't start there. It actually started with the Alliance American Football. I was about to say the other one that I did start doing podcasting about, but the AAF, I dived into that full bore in 2019. Just had heard about it on a whim. I think I caught it on TV when I was out to dinner with my brother. No joke, just sitting in an Olive Garden, and I had heard about it, so I flipped on a game on my phone while we were just waiting for food to come out, and I'm just sitting here thinking, oh yeah, this is pretty sweet, like full disclosure, like just so you and I can be on the same page, I'm not much a college football guy. I watch it to fill a gap to go to Sunday. I know that there is a divide there. I'm more of a pro football guy. I watch college. If it's on, it's on. My family's Notre Dame fandom background, so I'll do Notre Dame, but that's about it. Otherwise, I'm diehard Chicago Bears fan for the rest of my life. Love the NFL. And so seeing another professional league pop up, you get that and you go, wow, that's pretty sweet. And then I'm the guy, I love to go back and I start looking into things. So like the AAF, I read up on that more. And then, you're like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then you start thinking, oh, what happened to arena football? And you start looking into arena football. AFL was still around at the time. And once the AAF went under going into week 8, and I went, okay, well, this sucks. Hey, arena football's coming back soon. And so I jumped into that. I had just recently, the year prior, gotten out of college, and I was working at a radio station, and I went, all right, screw it. I'll take a shot at this. I can't get on air as a talent because I'm pretty new, but I bet I could borrow some of this equipment at my studio, or at the studio that I was at, and start recording stuff. And I started recording about arena football and loved arena football, kept getting better on it. Obviously the AFL went under, go figure, in November. So back-to-back double whammy in a year. And then I just said, all right, well, what other football's out there? The XFL, which I had known about back in college, because my senior year is when Vince McMahon announced the league's return, 2018. So I kind of got intrigued by that as well. Did that, started talking about XFL, and then the rest is just kind of through. I did like Gridiron Gallery was my main show. Then I kept doing that, tried CFL out, tried talking other leagues, found the NAL through that. And then USFL is when I just kind of decided to do the show with my buddy who's on the website that I got recruited to on the XFL newsroom, Stefan Raychuk, or the Ref. And we do it now via USFL newsroom, and that's where the USFL podcast is at. And basically, you can just blame the AAF. That's the main deal. The AAF kind of got me into this. I love the history of the sport that's, the other attempts, I guess, that's not NFL related. There's so many fascinating stories of failure, trial and error, and even sabotage, like the NFL being in the way of some of these leagues too. I mean, you could write a whole book on just that skew. And I think amazing.
I'm with you. I think if we could get like a lot of people who have covered all these leagues to come with just one massive book, there's been books on each individual league, but come together on one, because I'm going to date myself a little bit age-wise. Mine was 2001 with the original XFL. I caught a few NFL Europe games here and there, but the XFL come along. I started watching. My dad went to a Birmingham Bolts game, and then also and even before that league folded, when the season ended, like, well, this sucks. I want more spring football. So then I saw the Arena Football League season was starting back up. Then the NFL Europe. So you can blame the original XFL on my fandom. So which was horrible. I had some old VHS tapes with games at a few years later.
Now.
Yes.
We talking ones you personally recorded yourself? You got them stored away?
Yeah, for some memories. Way before now, all of these old stuff showed up on YouTube. And the football wasn't great, man. It wasn't the best in the world. It was more about the WWF side of things and not the football. But
yeah, anyway. I mean, ironic that you now have an XFL that exists with The Rock owning a chunk of it, and the way it kicked off was The Rock going to the primetime game in Las Vegas and basically pumping up the connection between the WWF and the then XFL 1.0. It's weird saying 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 now, but that's how we are now. It's funny. You don't get 2.0, 3.0 without 2.0 or like things like that. And I don't think that's, even if 1.0 was quote unquote a bad league in many regards, it does kind of continue that fascination of, well, what if we can get another try, because there are a lot. I think a lot of people do want more football. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking right now.
Exactly. There is an appetite for it. And I'll close on this, then we can jump to the USFL now. I like how this year, and this kind of does jump to the USFL. I like how now we're seeing the historical side, the stuff from the 80s.
Yes.
I wish that I know there's kind of like, I feel like sometimes there's like a stain on the original XFL. I wish they would actually at least bring up the stats, because you played a 10-game season and stuff like that. The numbers, I think, should matter. Because for some people, I'm saying, oh yeah, that was a league in 01. It came back in 20, pandemic. I think a casual may link them all together. So I'm just like, let's bring it all together. Copy the USFL in that standpoint.
I do wonder if that would be something you explore in season 2. And of course, they've come out, you and I have been following this. They've said, we want to make our own path. We want to forge our own path with this brand. We bought this brand. It's ours now. It's 3.0 to people that follow, but it's really to us 1.0. And I'm the same way. We're like, that's great and all, but like, even if you don't want to disclose and avoid 2.0s, or 1.0s, which I get it. Some of the stuff, a little questionable. Obviously, we don't want to talk about the cheerleader locker room thing. We don't want to talk about some of those other items about, the freaking fumble drill for possession. I get that. But it's a weird part of football history. 2.0, I think at the very least you should be talking and say, let's merge that in, because 3.0 doesn't exist without McMahon relaunching the second iteration and people going, my God, that was a great 5-year stint. Like, people still talk about in our circles how damn good that 5-week stint was to that 2020 season, and how it's still, to even some people, doesn't even live up to these 2 new leagues. That's the funny thing. It still is like the cream of the crop for how to like get fan engagement and like good football. Neither to me has done, it's come close for both, but still haven't perfected what made that its own like wow thing. And it's wild to me. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think this has been a fascinating season in USFL season 2. I think there's more parity this year than there was last season. What would you be your overall grade on season 2 of the second iteration of the USFL?
I think year over year, play wise, I definitely have to give it a better grade than last year. Last year I gave it about, and I'm trying to remember if this is the case, because I'm imagining some dude's going to like dig back into shows like, that's not what you said. I gave it like a BB plus last year for play, because it was still, it was first year. There were some rough spots, but by the end of the year, you could see what was going on. This year, I have given it, I think it's reached at the very minimum B plus, like flat floor. It's definitely been better than last year's floor. Ceiling wise, I think it's A minus to, if you want to be really optimistic, an A in terms of spring football. I'm not going to, this rating scale is like spring football based. No one on this should be taking it as well. It's comparing us like the NFL. The NFL is like A plus plus plus. It's got many letter grades above because it is the best of the best in the world. You're never going to hear from me that this is a league or the XFL is a league challenging the NFL status. But in terms of like quality football, yeah, it's like a B plus A minus this year and consistently across the board. And you're absolutely right, Phillip. The parity every week, it has become so much better. There's no like 2 teams in the South that are outrunning the rest of their division, or even the North, which was even worse last year when you consider the Generals were 9-1 and then Philadelphia 6-4. And your next 2 best options were Michigan and Pittsburgh sitting lowly at the bottom, losing bitter losses week after week. No, this year we're still like week 8 coming up. You have a division that is split within a game of every team, and you have the North, which is at minimum 2 games. But even then, it's still manageable because the Stars could lose this week to the Stallions. You could see, Michigan could get a win over New Orleans. The Generals did lose last week. Like, all this parity, it makes for much more fun conversation about playoffs. It makes it feel more serious. So that's why, I got to give it a B plus A minus, because not only for play, I think coaching has gotten better. And that's what's saying, like, Houston's coaching, for example. I was worried it was going to be terrible because they were the shortest term flip to turn around and get going. They had only a few months. They were the last coaching staff to get changed out, and yet they're 4-3, and they've gotten better as the years gone on. Todd Haley, who was looking like he was going to be the de facto like Kirby Wilson, like 3 weeks in, people were like, "Oh, there he is. This is the villain of the year." And look at him. He's changed things. He's all happy and giddy. They're four wins, and they fixed everything. It seems season's not over, but they're sitting in the driver's seat, at least of their destiny. It's unreal. No team looks like a dud. Every team looks like they're in it this year. It's crazy. We were not thinking that way in week 8 last season.
You're right, because you talk about Pittsburgh and Michigan were pretty bad last season, and even like you said, the bottom record wise, every team has a shot to win every single week, and it makes the games fun. And these last 3 weeks, I think, are going to be fun. Birmingham, the South, is just incredible. All these teams have winning records now. I mean, and now Birmingham finds themselves back on top at 5-2 and beating New Orleans 24-20 just in this game, because it seemed like New Orleans, if you look at the stats, New Orleans wins the game. If you look at stats away from the scoreboard, but the turnovers once again was the bugaboo for New Orleans. But Birmingham 24-9. New Orleans made a run in the fourth quarter. Hail Mary was failed. But what was something that really stood out to you with the Birmingham win over New Orleans on Saturday?
Personally, I think that it was key moments defensively, opportunistic defense. For example, you're shutting down, second drive for the Breakers. You cause a fumble off West Hills, flips the script, gets you a possession going back the opposite way. I think you saw the Stallions for at least 3.5 quarters, 3-ish, and maybe a clip of the fourth, play a clean game, consistent football. They found more and more of an identity. Alex Magoo has I think exceeded above and beyond what he was last year. Now that he is the guy, he's healthier. Yes, he's dealing with the ribs, you can tell in games, but he's healthier. He's able to do his own thing, and he's become a star. He's right now the leading MVP candidate in the USFL for how he has played so far this season. And I think it comes from him. They found a better running game. They've gotten CJ Marable and company more comfortable with getting run plays. Marable's also been a great safety valve, by the way, in the passing game. And I think those two have been kind of the keys to opening some things up. If you can get Marable active and get him in the run game and throw off the breakers, pass game gets opened up. We see Jay Sternberger get more involved, Deion Kane get more involved, guys like that, Darian Davis, if I wanted to add on. And so I think that was a big key. Again, opportunistic defense, all the same as well, because Birmingham's gotten healthier on that side of the ball. Yeah, they don't have Scooby Wright, but Brody Buck has done a great job filling in for Scooby Wright. JoJo Tillery coming back has been massive. Brian Allen still playing consistent ball. You got Newsome, who's coming in, being a nuisance in the backfield. Willie Henry has been getting better at getting pressure during the season, and it's all helped a lot. And it really, that has been, I think, the best key is you're getting healthy, you're finding an identity, and for New Orleans, they can't get out of their own way. You put up 370 yards total, you win the possession battle. How do you lose by 4? How do you get down 24-9? And it's simple mistakes and mental errors that 3 straight weeks have been plaguing them. They haven't gotten out of their own way. And Coach Filippo has even mentioned it in interviews this week that, their destiny's in their own hands. They need to figure out this stuff ASAP because every game's a must win because they couldn't get things together against New Orleans for the sweep. Or against Birmingham for the sweep.
With New Orleans, the first 4 games, people are talking about this is going to be the easy slam dunk. This is the best team in the league, far and away. And then you lose 3 in a row. And I know everybody was high praise from McLeod Bethel Thompson, which, the turnovers, as we kind of mentioned. But hey, have you seen something else maybe with them offensively? That's kind of because the offense just has not seemed they're putting up yards, but they're not getting the points.
Yeah, and I want to put out one point I think that I've been seeing more lately, and that's the Breakers offensive line. I don't know if it's that MB. I'm going to call him MBT to make things simpler on this, so bear with me. But I think he's getting a little more pressure, and his internal clock's kind of speeding up. And he's it looks like he's almost panicking in some scenarios. He got sacked twice this game. He's been getting pressured, I think, a little more as the season's gone on. If you look at these last 3 losses that they have been in, whether it's Philadelphia or whether it's been Birmingham or Memphis, all 3 of those games, defenses have been able to get back there and kind of rattle MBT a little more than he did in those first 4. He hasn't had the same pocket, and that does throw off a quarterback's timing, and I think a quarterback's kind of patience in the pocket to kind of deliver when he's needed. Because even in this one, 2 sacks, but he got pressured a lot of times during this one. Honestly, I didn't think he had a clean of a pocket until really in the fourth quarter when you saw things were starting to fire on all cylinders and they got within 4 points. They actually turned up the juice on Birmingham and flipped the script on them to where it was you're kind of pulling your collar if you're a Stallions fan at Protective for a little bit, but they got the job done. But that's the difference to me. They have the run game still. Wes Hills is still a very capable running back. He can catch out of the backfield. They have a plethora of receiving options realistically they can throw to. I just think that he gets rattled every other, at least once a drive. He gets rattled, things kind of turn down, and incompletions happen. You hurry yourself up a little bit. That's the thing. He's blamed himself for it. I do think it does kind of come back on him. He did throw for 279, but it was also in a hurry-up, last-ditch effort, really a lot of that in the fourth quarter when things were kind of looking desperate anyway. You don't want to be behind the 8 ball. They've been behind the 8 ball a lot in this 3-game losing streak. They got to start getting back to being ahead and being the aggressor rather than having to play catch-up.
Going into for this Saturday, big game, 2:00 Central Time on NBC. We'll get the rematch of the USFL Championship game from last year with Philadelphia and Birmingham. And Philadelphia, Saturday night, they were very –
I know.
Zach, this looked like this was the best their offense had looked all season. Scoring 37 points. They had a run game. I don't think Case Cookus got hit a lot. Now, he did throw his 8th interception of the year. That's been an issue for them. But what did you see out of Philadelphia? And do you think this is not just a one-week thing? This could be something that could kind of turn around their season offensively through these last 3 weeks into the postseason?
You nailed one of the elements on the head. They've been finding a bit more rhythm in the run game, something that I think they were just desperately trying to avoid early on in the year. I don't know if Bart Andrews got scared off from it early in the season. He was like, well, we'll do the minimum, but we got a plethora of receivers, which they do. Philadelphia's receiving core, that was something coming into the year that they have been considered the most stacked at the position in terms of receiving options. They still are. And it's shown out in recent weeks what we were expecting, especially this past week, that if you can get a run game going, if you can get any bit of pressure off of Case Cookus to not take a hit in the backfield, that is going to save your games, and it's going to make your games most likely go your way in the long run. I mean, let's be frank. Case Cookus, in the early going of the season, it was consistently 4 sacks a game this man was taking. That's ridiculous. Any professional level, if you're getting hit that much, your offense needs to change. You cannot. I mean, early in the season, I remember sitting there in front of my TV going, how are you on third, knowing that you are getting your QB killed even with a running back in support? How are you running a 5-receiver set and saying, you know what, these tackles who've been failing me already for 3 weeks are going to do justice on this play? I sat there, I would watch a sack and I'd go, this man is sending out a QB to die. And finally, after they got blown out by Houston, they must have had kind of an epiphany, because slowly but surely, things that I've been wanting them to do, they've been doing. They're doing more quick passes. They're getting the ball out of the backfield and saying, you know what, receivers, do your yak thing. Yards after the catch, it's on you. Running game, if we need to do something where it's, out of the shotgun or out of the pistol, all right, Matt, here you go. Or we'll do a little more RPO. Or we'll get a little more under center now. And they've been slowly but surely building up. And last week, I think that was the accumulation of that finally hitting to where this is perfected. Secondly, and something that I actually talked about in an interview I'll be premiering on this week's episode of USFL Podcast with Amani Dennis, their defense, it also had an epiphany. After that Gamblers game, that was a wake-up call. They figured things out. Defensively, they've been mostly, for the most part, shut down in many regards. Sans last week, I'll admit, although if you look at the stats, I mean, besides some special teams touchdowns and some tomfoolery, they did their part against the Maulers for the most part. Even though the Maulers put up 31 on the scoreboard, they only put up 202 total yards offensively in all regards. That's a pretty good job defensively for any team. The week prior, pick 6 seals the deal against the Breakers. They shut down New Orleans. It was a penalty fest, of course, but they still won. Then, of course, against the Generals, same deal. They slowed down their offense. Yeah, it took 8 field goals, but you know what? It did the job. So defense, it's been coming on strong. It's getting more pressure on the QB. Adam Rodriguez is apparently a second half defensive end because that's what he did last year. He turned on the Jets last season halfway through the year and was second in sacks. He's back up to 4 sacks in the season and midway through the pack now. Watch him get more. And so I think you're seeing that. You're seeing the passing game finally to take hold and say, here's how we get rid of pressure on Case Cookus, who took only 1 sack last week, by the way, against arguably the best defense in the USFL, one of the top defenses in sacks in the USFL, and they gave up 1 sack to a team that was giving up an average 4 a week through 4 weeks. I'd say they've made some good adjustments. That's good signs of good coaching and finally understanding your weaknesses and adapting to make that fit to where you have better strengths. Andrus, I got to give credit for, and as well as Brad Miller, defensive coordinator for that team, because it's paid dividends. They look much different, and they look like the stars that we were expecting them to be coming into the season.
Yeah, I was feeling kind of not so smart for a few weeks there. I had picked them to win the title because I was such a big Case Cookus guy, and then now all of a sudden,
he threw a pick, but he still threw 2 touchdowns. He's looking better, and some of those picks do get instigated because he was taking so many hits. You're rushing yourself. You're hurrying it up. You're trying to make things happen so you don't get killed. And he's getting more time. That 1 interception, I'll admit, yeah, maybe a little bit of miscommunication against Pittsburgh, a little bit of an overthrow, but nonetheless, 2 touchdowns. He's been looking better. That is his best performance this season was against the Maulers. And if this is just like Philadelphia last year, it's only going to get better. Now, if you for being a Stallions fan, you're hoping it's not, but it's looking like it's just going to keep getting better because they finally figured out what they needed to do so that they can move along and not get things stalled out by getting a sack on a drive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been impressive. And look, there's been a lot of this in this league this year. We've seen teams slow starts or have a few weeks. Like, talk about the Breakers. I mean, they can easily turn around these next 3 weeks. I mean, look at Memphis. The 2 games on Sunday. You look at a team that started 0-3. They're now 4-3. I mean, Houston was 0-2, and they went on a run. I mean, that was one of the games I was looking forward to the most this weekend was Memphis and Houston because those were probably 2 of the hot, if not the hottest 2 teams, 2 of the hottest teams in the league. And then you look at the late game on Sunday, Michigan finally turning it around. Josh Love looked like the quarterback we saw week 1 of Sunday's games. What were the big things for you with those 2? With Memphis beating Houston 23-20, and then Michigan beating New Jersey 25-22.
I can't read my fandom's the Panthers, and I can't get a read on them. If you want to chalk it up to a home field curse, be my guest. But if I want to be more analytical and kind of say, okay, how did they fix items that they were lacking on in previous 4-game losing streaks, and especially their last contest against the Generals that kicked things off to that dreadful home stretch from hell, as I've been calling it. And the way I look at it, minimize the turnovers, minimize the mental errors, something that I think was emphasized against Birmingham, was that it's just a lot of miscues and errors on an entire kind of path between not only players, but coaches as well that was highlighted. They had little to none of that in that contest. Defense has been playing up to snuff all season. It's been on the offensive side to start delivering, and they came to play. Things that they were doing well in that 2-game win streak were coming back. Receivers were being reliable, catching passes as needed. Yes, there were still some pass breakups at the line that Josh Love hasn't gotten over, but there were less of them. He was able to stand in the pocket, deliver as needed, and it paid dividends. The run game, it did its job enough. It didn't need to be leaned on. Something that teams have been queuing in is if we stop the run, we'll just pressure Josh Love and make him get frustrated and buy out his passes down. Josh was able to throw. Thus, it kind of flows and more openly starts getting better. So all this, I think, and as well as a solid defensive effort, kind of paved the way for Michigan to get this next win and something that they can build on. New Jersey, it's going to be tough. Now, credit, they kept up with Michigan. They still have a decent offensive, I would say, element in terms of their run game, but they're not as explosive as any other team in the league. That's a problem of mine. They're going to have to figure something out. Otherwise, defense, it's been holding up its end of the bargain. It's just there's not as much explosive talent on the general side that isn't, say, Darius Victor, Trey Williams, or maybe Cam Eccles-Looper. because without Cam Eccles-Looper in it, I don't know, Alonzo Moore maybe, but it's harder. And now without DeAndre Johnson, who's not going to be there this week because of a gruesome hit that he took in that past contest. I mean, Kyle Letta, he's okay, but we saw in this past game, DeAndre Johnson is definitely the better QB option. That's going to hurt them for their playoff chances moving forward. Which by the way, side note, if you've been listening to my show, Mike Riley to me, I think was foolish for doing the 2 QB system the way he's been doing, because it's kind of abusive to DeAndre Johnson. He's definitely the more talented guy, but but to me, he's coming off as a guy that wants to play for film rather than playing to win. And I've had problems with that, but I digress. For Memphis, I'll tell you, I thought they were going to blow it. I was sitting there going, how are you about to let a team that you have manhandled all day come back from 10 down and take a win from you? Because the 2 previous offensive drives, you know what they did? They ran the ball 6 straight times, 3 times apiece, and didn't throw a pass, which are like, well, yeah, we're running well. But here's my thing. I'm sitting on my couch going, you can't just run it, because you're going to stack the box and eventually you're going to screw yourself. And they did it 2 straight drives. It led to then Mark Thompson having that, having essentially that open run, that, how do I put it? Essentially just free lane to rush, and gave him a 23-yard score. They go up 16-13. I'm going, that's it. We're done. They go up 20-16. I go, that's it. We're done. But tell you what, Cole Kelly stood in there. My favorite thing is Derek Dillon is a talented receiver option and someone that I think is becoming more of a star that will get a next chance in the NFL this season. Memphis has been legit. And a lot of it actually comes down, again, defense, better coaching, understanding what works for you. It's been a lot of good coaching this year, a lot of adaptiveness, something we didn't see as much last season, like Todd Haley. Todd Haley was stubborn as hell last year in how he ran his offense and how he wanted principles from Jordan Teamu, who went on to the XFL, and the rest is history. He has a hell of a season there. But last year, people were dogging Teamu for being not as good as his XFL self, and that was not really the case. I thought the offense was bad. But you see this year, finally goes 0-3, changes his offense to be a little more run-heavy when needed. They got new personnel in. They brought Juwan Washington back. They brought Kareth White, who have both been solid running backs in recent weeks. And that opens up the passing game. Good coaching. But I think both those teams, you can see, at least Memphis, it's definitely been better coaching in the last 4 weeks. Michigan, they just cleaned stuff up. I think they had their epiphany last week and went, guys, we got to organize how we are running our operation is best I can put it.
Yeah, and now all these teams in position is because, like we've talked about this at the top, it's going to be very interesting. These last 3 weeks are going to be a lot of fun. And I know I told you 20. I think I've kept you now 30 minutes.
No, look, I've been talking up a storm, so this ain't even on. This ain't even on you. It's on me.
So real quickly before I let you go, I mentioned at the top, you also host a podcast talking about the National Arena League, Inside the Walls podcast. And of course, I guess the league has been getting probably some, I don't know if it's unwanted or wanted, whatever, but the Antonio Brown stuff. And I'll say this, for a lot of people out there that may not know this, his dad is one of the all-time great arena football players. Yes. We all know Antonio Brown, the antics, the Steelers, with all the stuff, the Tom Brady stuff, but Touchdown Daddy Brown was a beast in the Arena Football League for the Albany Firebirds back in the day. But what's the latest on this? Is he ever going to suit up for the Albany Empire? Is Cam Newton coming? What's going on over there?
I can't predict what happens tomorrow, and I can't predict how the Albany Empire run their organization. Those are 2 things in my life that I can't give you a good answer on. The only thing I can tell you is it's Antonio Brown's team, and I guess he's running it the way he wants, but that's not even concrete. I mean, the only thing I ask right now is I just want a coach that they stick with. Is the only thing. They fired another head coach this week in Pete Porcelli, who had been a former Albany Firebird, local guy. Didn't even last a week, and they lost to a better Fayetteville Mustangs team that had more talent on it. Came into a home game, and they were going off of hiring a brand new coach and getting new personnel in. I mean, it's just been a roller coaster, and that's how it's been. This is a owner that stripped down a all NAL championship roster, yes, he did save the team in terms of paying, things that were needed in terms of workers' comp so the team can play. That's great. But a lot of other items like that, ripping apart a championship team, firing coaches week in and week out, it's not ideal. It's not at all. Ideal is even putting it very lightly. And I don't know what is tomorrow. I do hope he plays on the 17th, like he is claiming. That's the next home game, June 17th. And he's claiming paperwork was the problem, which, sure, physical wasn't put in, as he has been reported by many outlets in Albany. But it's also been mentioned that the commissioner of the league, NAL, has said that you can, as an owner, waive the physical to play. He didn't do it. So we'll see. We'll find out. I think anymore, I play this story on what goes on in Albany by ear, and I just react. There is no concrete knowing what's happening anymore up there, because it is the AB show. You are stuck to your seat to see what happens next. And I think every media outlet has its popcorn out and ready because it wants to see what happens, because it's just that type of affair right now. It's not a good team, but it is certainly the press-making, internet clicks type of team at this moment. And I don't know what's going to happen beyond this season, because that's the thing. I don't know what the end game is for Antonio Brown as an owner, or his trust, which you can read up on that. He may or may not fully own the team. His trust owns the team. It's its own roller coaster. But I don't know what's all going to happen beyond the next week. So I hope he plays. I also hope he somehow gets Cam Newton to play just for the hell of it, so I can see this happen. But again, we don't really know. So even like this week, they get some time off. Fantastic. But I digress. I don't know what's going to happen. Wish I could tell you, but stick around for the ride. You and me, we have another chat about this later on, because I'd love to have an after the season discussion when new stuff probably comes out or changes like the wind.
Yeah, it's trust me, I've been keeping my eyes on what's been going on and pay attention, and it's been interesting, and the rest of the league is good too. So that's I guess that's the down part. The good teams maybe not be getting talked about as much, or it's like, okay, what's going on after Antonio Brown? Like, okay, the Gunslingers are good, the Sharks are good. There's some good teams in the league, but everybody can hear about it. Go ahead.
Well, you're right. I mean, it takes up that to me. This is the biggest part that annoys me with this. Is that it takes up so much oxygen from all the good stuff. Like, we actually had pretty competitive play across the league this year. The net conversation, it was early season. It was having problems where we weren't getting back to nets. Now we're seeing nets used regularly. We had the best team last week in the league get knocked down by what is possibly an up-and-coming best team in the Jacksonville Sharks, who have reloaded and took 2 Albany Empire talents from that championship team. And they look even scarier than they were earlier in the year. We've got 3 teams at the top of the league standings of the 4 that would qualify for the playoffs that we're not sure who's going to finish in number 1 at the end of the year. We've got the bottom half of the league who's all within striking distance of the playoff seeding for the 4th seed, but that's not the conversation. And that's what kills me. Is like, good football is getting overshadowed by, I'll call it to be safe, weird business decisions. That's to be safe. I could call it worse, but it's being overshadowed by weird business decisions and social media discussion. And that's the sad thing. It really is the sad thing about this. But I'll keep watching. Arena football is great, especially when you have the true game in its own full grasp in play. Like I said, like you love the Nets. You love the old school stuff. I know. I freaking love the Nets. Like, there are people in the early weeks going, we're not kicking these things in the Nets. Let's get rid of them. I'm like, don't you dare say to get rid of these things. People have been fighting for these things for like years to get back. We're keeping them, and it's been paying off as the years gone on. That's been a big story that I think has been paying off, and I love it. That and Iron Man. Mm-hmm. I love that both of those are back. They're 2 of the things that I love about this sport, which is why I'm like, I got to watch it. It's different than outside. I can watch the USFL, for some games on my weekend, but then I can go watch a completely different game that's even more hectic. And, I know the rules and I can, follow that, and it's its own great community as well. So
it is. The real football community is a special one. It's a different one. It's a really good one. And Zach, this has been a good conversation. Like I said, when we played this, I said 20. We're getting close to 40, but it's been great. I love talking this. I love talking these leagues. It's always been something, as we talked about at the top, something I've been a big fan of. But if viewers, listeners, they want to check out the USFL podcast or the Inside the Walls podcast, where can they check those out? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll give you the socials for the shows. Inside the Walls, it's at In Walls Pod on your favorite social platform, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We all are on those. Also go to YouTube. You can use at In Walls Pod to find us as well. For basically 2 episodes a week right now during the regular season, we do recaps usually Tuesday or Wednesday, and then we do Fridays. We'll give you the previews to the week coming up. So stick with us right now. We're basically in mid-season form where we're like full swing, talking to doing interviews every week, 2 episodes a week, giving you breakdowns, and all the like. And then the USFL podcast, we're in mid-season form too. We do 1 episode a week though, but definitely check us out at USFL podcast, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We do have a TikTok. It's not as active, but we have a TikTok if you want to check it out. And then on YouTube, same deal at USFL podcast. For those, both shows you can find on your favorite audio platforms as well. We deliver both of them, so you don't have to just watch. You can listen on the go if you like to, and then catch us. Of course, like I said, every Friday you at least get both those shows out. Every Tuesday or Wednesday you get a new Inside the Walls. So three shows a week, or 3 episodes a week at the minimum. I'm doing. That I'm at least a part of.
For everybody, if you're a fan of these leagues or not, you need to be a fan of these leagues now. Go check them out. Go follow both podcasts. Listen to Zach. You heard all the great goodness here on this show. Go check him out when you hear all that all the time. And Zach, I do appreciate you taking the time coming on the show, and I look forward to doing this again sometime down the road.
Hey, I am glad to have jumped on. Really appreciate your stuff, man, your work. And glad to get to chat with you. Always love chatting this skew of football. Anytime I get to it, it's why it took up so much time. I love gushing about it, man. It's growing, and the movement, especially for spring football, it's growing, and it's guys like us keep building it up.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's been fun, Zach, and I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Phil. Appreciate it.
All right. Once again, thanks to Zach for coming on this edition of the Spring Football Report. And please go check out both his shows, the USFL podcast and Inside the Walls. And as we get out of here for this week, got some XFL news. This comes from Mark Perry from the XFL News Hub. The XFL let go some marketing employees and some other full-time employees. Notable were CMO Janet Dooch, and I hope I pronounced her name right, and VP of Marketing Anthony Ciccone. We'll be letting go 35 people from each team, shifting some employees to seasonal work from full-time work. This obviously seems to be, to me, the XFL is looking into having a saving money. That's kind of, I think, the gist of what we're getting here with that. So, and the league did put out a statement. The statement, I'm getting this from ProFootballTalk.com. As the XFL plans for 2024 and beyond, it has decided to transition into a dual full-time and seasonal-based employment model to improve efficiency and drive sustainable business performance across all markets. Given the seasonal nature of the business, the XFL will continue to employ full-time business and football operation functions on both the league and team levels, and will scale up hiring each year for preseason and in-season roles. XFL spokesperson Dan Gaynor said in a statement to Ben Fisher of the Sports Business Journal. So obviously this is a business move, it seems like, obviously, to save some money. So no need to panic, people out there, if the XFL is coming back for another season. Now let's get out of here with the picks. Week 8 in the USFL on Saturday. 4-3 Houston will be at 2-5 Pittsburgh, 11 a.m. over on USA. As I always tell you guys, I do Central Time because that's the time zone I live in. Houston is a 3.5 point favorite with the over-under at 43.5. I think Pittsburgh is a lot better than they were last year. Special teams are really good. But Houston, tough loss, 23-20 to Memphis. I think they'll bounce back and improve to 5-3 on the year. So I'm going to go, obviously, with Houston to win this one. They'll go 5-3, and then that will put Pittsburgh at 2-6. Then on 2:00 game, of course, I will be at this game. Philadelphia 4-3 at Birmingham 5-2. 2:00 on NBC. Birmingham, they are a 6-point favorite in this one, and Birmingham, the over/under is a 45.5 points. Philadelphia's playing better. They've won their last 3. Birmingham looks to be the best team in the league. This very well could be a preview for the championship game in July. I think this is going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a fun game. I'm going to go with Birmingham, though. Just you match the South with the North team right now. I'm probably going to go with the South team more than likely. I like Birmingham to win this. I think it'll be a close game. Birmingham will pull out the victory at the end. I think they will get some pressure on Case Cookus. This Birmingham team just has ability to do that, and I think Magoo's going to make some plays. So I'm going to go with Birmingham to win this one, and that'll put Philadelphia at 4-4, and then Birmingham would go to 6-2. Memphis at 4-3 will be at New Jersey as 2-5. I just don't think New Jersey is going to be able to put up a lot of points. Memphis defense is playing well, causing turnovers. I think Kyle Laletta, I always have trouble saying his name for some reason. But anyways, I think he'll throw some picks in this one. Memphis will jump on it. I like Memphis to win this game. They will improve to 5-3, and then New Jersey will drop to 2-6. And then Michigan at New Orleans, 3-4. Michigan 4-3. New Orleans, 3:00 on Fox on Sunday. New Orleans is a 3-point favorite here. 42.5 the over/under. This is a big game for both teams because Michigan, look, you win this one, you go to 4-4. Maybe you tie then Philadelphia for the lead in the North. But if you're New Orleans, you have to win it. I mean, because look, if these games go the way I'm saying, they lose, they're 3-5. They're still in second place. They're still in the playoffs. But for New Orleans, they lose and drop to 4-4. That could be big. That could really be problematic for them. I just feel like this game means more. I think New Orleans is a more talented team. It's just, like I said in the open, and as I said in my conversation with Zach, the turnovers and the red zone efficiency, I just feel like New Orleans is just a better team here, and they'll win this game, and they will go to 5-3, and Michigan drop to 3-5. So let's just say, for instance, if my picks go the way I think they're going to go, so you would still have Birmingham on top of the South at 6-2. Memphis will still be at 5-3. Houston will be 5-3, and New Orleans will be 5-3. So you're kind of still there. And then I'd have Philadelphia at 4-4, Michigan 3-5, and then Pittsburgh and New Jersey tied 2-6. So nothing, if these games go the way I think they're going to go, nothing will really change in the USFL standings. And that's going to do it for the show. And if you are listening to this on the Phillip Jordan feed, on Thursday's show, we'll be recapping SEC spring meetings. Just going to be me talking about, a lot of coaches have been talking. I got to gather some quotes, gather some sound to play here on the show for you guys. But SEC spring meetings. So we'll be talking about that on that show. Plan on being back for this one next week, recapping all the goodness that happened in the USFL over the weekend. You can follow me on Twitter at PJordanSEC. The podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can email me at sportstalkphilipjordan@gmail.com. And if you're interested in college football, you can check out all my written work over at Last Word on college football. And check out the Wiregrass High School Football Report, too. That show's coming back soon. Anyways, I hope everybody enjoys the USFL games this weekend. Until next time, bye-bye.